Greetings, good morning, and welcome to Mind the Moment. We're thrilled to have you with us in our coffee house in the cloud, a place to gather, build community, get centered, and explore the possibilities of this present moment. It is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020, which is the 78th birthday of British cosmologist and astrophysicist Martin Rees, who coincidentally was the 78th president of the Royal Astronomical Society. Rees has stated, "Inside every black hole that collapses may lie the seeds of a new expanding universe." This, I think, is a wonderful thing to consider when considering mindfulness practice, recognizing that every moment that arises passes away, but that each arising and passing moment carries with it the stuff that will influence the making of the next moment. All the more crucial then to develop a wholehearted awareness of this present moment in hopes of helping the next moment be equally heartfelt. I am John Roberts from Harvard Pilgrim Health Care's Mindfulness program, and if what happens in the next moment is influenced by this one, then I couldn't be more grateful and relieved to be passing this moment with Rebecca Wing, licensed clinical professional counselor, longtime teacher of mindfulness, and founder of the Mindfulness Retreat Center of Maine, which I can only imagine has its full abundance on display as we round the corner of midsummer. Good morning to you, Rebecca.
Good morning, John. Good to see you. Good morning, everybody.
So in just a moment, I will hand things over to Rebecca to lead us in a 10-minute guided meditation, after which we'll dive into some Q&A, and then we'll wrap things up just before 9 a.m. Now, at the bottom of your screen, there's an option to open up a chat box. Please do not hesitate to type in any questions or comments you might have at any time. We'd love to know what's on your mind. On that note, Rebecca, is there anything you'd like to ask the folks at home to comment on as we're getting started?
Sure. John and I were thinking about the theme of relationship today, and one of the themes would be around the question of what's it like to slow down my reaction time?
All right. So if anyone would like to type about a few words about what it feels like to slow down your reaction time, that would be wonderful. Looks like we have a pretty substantial group of people practicing with us this morning. Thank you for taking the time to be with us and each other. Please keep in mind that only Rebecca and I will be able to see what you type. And if we don't read your question or comment out loud, please know that we do read and value them all. And before we close, I will point out some other ways you can keep in touch with us as well. So I wanted the first thing in the chat box, someone noted that it's besides being Martin Rees' birthday, it's also his birthday. So happy birthday to anybody who is joining us today. Thank you for taking the time. As far as that feeling of slowing down, here's what I'm seeing. There's a challenge to not react quickly. That feeling of slowing down is very beneficial. Somebody says it can change the trajectory of the conversation. Someone else says, I have a very difficult time doing it. And Rebecca, I asked you before we started what your answer was, and you had quite a good one, I think.
Yes, I just said it takes practice, because the natural tendency of our human nature is to respond quite quickly. And so to slow things down takes time and practice. And we'll never be perfect at it, but it's a good thing to aspire to, I think.
So speaking of practice, Rebecca, allow me to turn it over to you to get us started in that direction.
Good. So in light of slowing down reaction time, we're going to do a meditation that's actually very deliberate around breath and the exhales. And so what I'm going to suggest we do, I'll lead you through a little settling in practice, and then we're going to be counting the exhales in sets of 5. And so what that does is it gives the mind a little bit to focus on, so that when I breathe out, I count 1, and then I breathe in and I wait for the next inhale. And then I breathe out and I count 2, and then I let the next inhale happen by itself. So counting exhales in sets of 5, by the time I get to 5, then I come back to 1 and I start again. So experiment with the idea of focusing the attention on the exhale, and then simply rest in the inhale, and then counting the next one. So find your seat this morning. See if you can find a way to allow the body to be upright. It's always nice to think about sitting with dignity when we practice meditation. So checking in, you might want to take a moment to soften the muscles of the face, allowing the shoulders to rest on the frame of the body. And just imagining the spine being long and upright as you sit. Sometimes it's even helpful to scoot towards the edge of the chair a little bit. That helps the spine be able to elongate without resting on the back of the chair. So you do what works for you. And then we're going to drop into the breath this morning. So be thinking about the quality of the rise and fall of my breath in whatever it's doing this morning. You'll probably hear the birds singing outside my window this morning, so they are joining us with their breath. Just noticing the soft rise and fall of the breathing. And then we're going to add a number to each exhale, counting them in sets of 5. I breathe out and count 1, and I wait for the inhale on its own. I breathe out and I count 2, and then I wait for the next inhale until I get to 5, and then I return back to 1 and try again. Counting exhales in sets of 5. Begin. If you get lost in thought, you can always go back to 1. Gentle attention, a soft awareness of the breath, letting the thoughts go when they arise, Each breath an opportunity to try again. Back to one. Each moment an opportunity to practice gentle attentiveness and kindness towards our experience. Back to one. The last part of the meditation is to drop the form and simply rest, not trying to do much of anything, just resting. And as we end the practice, sometimes it's helpful to draw a deeper breath back into the body, maybe shoulder roll back, moving the hands and feet, maybe even a stretch this morning as we end the practice.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. What I loved about this particular practice was, sometimes for myself, we were talking that I tend to get a little bit competitive with myself, and so with this sort of like structure, supportive practice technique, sometimes I think, oh well, that's cheating. I don't need to do that. But then it just becomes so much, so easy for me to just get lost in thought then, and this sort of lattice work or support I find to be really a relief, and I think, oh, it has a nice
Yes.
sort of you know, it's like lying on a supportive bed.
I find that, even after meditating daily for 30 years, there are some mornings where I'll sit down to practice and I realize, oh, okay, wow, lots going on. And so I do the breath counting as the beginning of the meditation to help kind of give the mind something else to do, so that it's something to rest in. It's a very good way to put it. Yeah.
Somebody in the chat box just commented the birds chirping were a lovely sound, which I agree. I found them to be very comforting in a way. Not least of all because we were also talking about my internet occasionally dropping, and I have this anxiety that as my eyes are closed, I will be disconnected and not know it. But the birds felt like a thread, letting me know that I was still locked in. So that was very very nice. So to everyone watching, we'd love to have you use the chat box to ask Rebecca any questions that you might have for her. While you gather your thoughts and type, I'll get us started with a question or two of my own. So Rebecca, as you know, right after ending the coffeehouse session on Friday morning, my partner Annie and I headed to Marblehead, Massachusetts to get married, which we did. And we had a wonderful, we had a wonderful celebrant who offered us some lines from Wendell Berry's poem, The Country of Marriage. And these are actually the lines. Sometimes our life reminds me of a forest. The forest is mostly dark, its ways to be made anew day after day. The dark richer than the light and more blessed, provided we stay brave enough to keep on going in. So, Rebecca, I think of you and your own partner, who I've never met, but look forward to someday. I think of the two of you as a kind of a mindfulness power couple, something to aspire to, at least in my life. So I'm curious about how the two of you use mindfulness to each day navigate afresh this ever-fluctuating forest of life.
Yes. And so we're back to that slowing down response time piece. I think the thing that's so striking about the world of mindfulness is that we do a lot of reading, we do a lot of thinking. It's ironically that we're learning all the time as a couple. I'm a therapist, my husband's a therapist, and we both specialize in mindfulness approaches and meditation instruction. And so I think what both of us have learned over the years, we've been married now 33 years, is that if I feel absolutely urgent about needing to say something, then it's probably a good idea to just take a moment and wait before we say it. Because the natural tendency for urgency is that we're stuck a little bit in an emotional sort of intense feeling. And frequently that doesn't allow us to bring some mindful awareness to our speech and how we say what it is we need to say. And that aspect of recognizing, gosh, this is a person I love. I want to speak with kindness. I certainly want to be gentle and encouraging in my relationship to my partner. And so that means sometimes that slowing it down and in a sense, allowing my mind to retrieve how I want to say something is very helpful in the communication that we have together.
Yeah, I'm hearing in this. I love this. That the reality that for those of us at least who haven't been practicing since we were babies, it's like we have this lifetime of habitual reactions like built up in like this jar, and like mindfulness is like kind of has been placed on the top, but it's also maybe it's the lid, but it's also a lid that can like pop is the first thing that pops off when one gets stressed, or when I'll just speak for myself when I get stressed. And so so knowing that maybe the mindfulness has like left in those stressful moments, and then just finding it and putting it back on before you proceed. I think
it's one of the biggest things about I work with couples also who are interested in doing marriage counseling within the framework of mindfulness, and we talk a lot about in therapy how, well, okay, what did I learn as a child growing up in my household, my family of origin, what it meant to be in a relationship. And we learn from our parents, we learn from our caregivers how it means that they get along and how they work together, and also how they express their love to me. So for better or for worse, we lodge a lot of that stuff in our memory unconsciously. So in other words, now I'm speaking to my partner but I'm actually retrieving information from my early experiences as a child, and it's what's coming out of me is not really a thought out response. It's in a sense an echo, as it were, of past experiences. And I'm sure all of you who are in relationships, even if you have, even with your children as well as your spouses, you'll find things that will leap out of your mouth that'll be like, oh my God, that sounds like my father, right? And that's because it's lodged in there, it's available to us, and it comes out very quickly. It's one of the first things that the brain references. So mindfulness is to say, okay, whoa, I don't think I really need to say it that way, or maybe I don't need to say anything at all right now. I want to slow it down so I can retrieve some kind of response that's a little bit more in line with my higher aspirations of being loving and kind and supportive of my partner.
Yeah, and hearing you talk about this, I think it's wonderful, because it reminds me that, this behaving mindfully is difficult, because there's a lot of pressure on us from our past experiences to not be mindful. And so we're really stuck in this one moment with all these other moments backed up behind it. And this is like the one sort of fragile moment that we have to react in the way that we'd like to, but there's a lot built up that's making that difficult.
Yes.
But all the more reason to sort of, create maybe strengthen the membrane around this moment through mindfulness.
And, I have to say that affirmations at the end of a meditation are a great way to reinforce what it is you're trying to remember. One of the biggest things around intention and establishing intention is that daily we need to remind ourselves, okay, I want to bring compassion. I want to bring a quality of acceptance and appreciation. I want to be in the present moment, making room for all things. It's like recognizing what are the things, really the highest aspirations of being in relationship with myself and the world that I want to reinvest in. And for those of you who are listening, one thing that you might want to look up online is something called the 4 Attitudes of Mindfulness. It's actually also in the Buddhist tradition, they call it the 4 Limitless Qualities. And so the 4 Attitudes of Mindfulness are friendliness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And these are the qualities that we're really, as mindfulness practitioners, aspiring to embody. We're not going to be perfect at it, but there's a quality of reminding myself that I can really hook into and invest in a way of being that might be different than what I grew up with, to be honest.
And just this idea of setting intentions, when I first started meditating, I had this sense that, okay, I gotta get into it as quickly as possible, and meditate hard right now. And it's not really the way into the practice. There's a lot of sort of settling in. And so one of the things I started trying, this was recommended to me by a teacher I had, was to set sort of reel through a few things you're grateful for as you're settling in, which is, first of all, great, but it's also just another way to just give your mind a moment to just sort of come into the space. And setting an intention, I think, is another great way to do that before the practice, maybe before and after the practice.
Whatever, yeah. And if someone just said, repeat the qualities. So the 4 Attitudes of Mindfulness: friendliness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And when you type that into your Google search, you'll find there are lots of different writings on it, because it is sort of the foundation for the Western mindfulness approach. And that sometimes it gets overshadowed by just the basic fundamental of following the breath and letting thoughts go. This is actually inviting and practicing healthy, aspirational qualities that I want to bring my attitude on a daily basis. Yeah.
These qualities I think are great as well, because they add the more of the active sense to mindfulness practice, because I think a lot of folks when they begin practicing might get the sense like this feels very passive, like I'm just sitting here, and these qualities that you're talking about is maybe if not the urgent, the active quality of practice, that like, oh, this is how I take this out,
especially, I think friendliness and kindness and gentleness are so good to apply towards our own practice, because if we're sitting with aggression or irritation or judging our mind, then we're missing the boat. So even that realization that, boy, you know, I want to bring some gentle attentiveness, some friendliness, and practice kindness towards my own experience, a good place to start.
So somebody in the chat box has mentioned that sounds like I think she's Googling and she's finding 6, 7, or 8 attitudes, but not the 4. But she likes the 4. It's easier to wrap your head around the 4. But this is also interesting because I think what she's finding is that in mindfulness, if you start researching mindfulness, you're gonna find there's lots of lists. Right? There's like three of these qualities and 4 factors and 8 steps, and so there are a lot of those around. But these are one of the 4s. You know, Rebecca, a moment ago somebody asked, and this was in reference to the practice specifically. She says, "I found my breath getting deeper while she was doing it." Is that how it works? I mean, maybe another way to think about that is that the right reaction for your breath to get deeper?
Well, you know, what I do, I think maybe it might be because I'm a musician and a singer, I think about the elongated quality of the number. So when I'm following the breath out, I'm actually, in a sense, counting 1. And what that does is not only does it help me keep track of the breath, but it encourages a slower exhale and a longer exhale. And what we know about the anatomy of breath is that the exhale is actually very, very important. I just did a day-long training on breathing deeply into life about the quality of that exhale, making room for a quality inhale. And so, yes, I think that oftentimes when we're doing that counting and elongating even in the word, it slows down and elongates the exhale.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this I mean, we were just sort of talking about the you know, the active part of mindfulness practice, and when I'm able to pay attention to the full breath, inhalation and exhalation, what it feels like to me is the inhalation is like bringing the world into myself, allowing myself to observe the world and have it presented to me. And then the exhale is more that intention towards actively engaging with the world mindfully. And so, I mean, but again, you know, sometimes it's hard to be with the full breath. And if you can, I find if I can just be with half of it, sometimes that's enough.
Well, so one added thing to that practice, if I count the exhale, the second aspect is resting in absence of thought on the inhale. So you can take this as far as you like to see, okay, is it possible for me to engage in a counting of the exhale and then just literally watch the inhale with an absence of thought, resting in the space between the next exhale. So it's a very good practice in learning how to rest in the gap.
So Rebecca, somebody mentioned that these 4 qualities also are known as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So that's another way to find it. So I have so many more questions. So this means this is another reason to have you back, Rebecca. But
Sure.
Unfortunately, I think we're going to need to wrap up. So here's how we're going to do that. So we're going to be here Rebecca will be here with us sometimes, but I'll be here every Tuesday and Friday all summer long, not to mention all fall and in the winter and beyond that. But in case you're more out and about these days than perhaps you've been in recent months, we want to make sure that we stay in touch with all of you who've been watching. And so we have a bit of a special request. All right, so first of all, we want everyone to keep meditating. But we also want to know where you're meditating. Where's your meditation sweet spot? We'd love for you to actually send us a picture of that. And I think it's only fair that I begin. And so I actually meditate most mornings exactly where I'm sitting right now. And in case you've ever wondered what the coffeehouse cockpit looks like from the other side, this is what you'd see if you were my wife, Annie, and you walked into the room right now with the bear, of course, playing the part of me. Rebecca, do you think I could convince you at some point in the next few days to send me a picture of your own meditation sweet spot?
Absolutely. I'd have to take it through the window because I meditate inside looking out. Our center, the Mindfulness Center of Maine, looks out over a pond. We have a pond on the property. And so that's my space, sitting in this chair, gazing out at the land.
I'm going to look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
So we'd love to have everyone watching at home post a picture of your own meditation sweet spot. You can do it to our Facebook page. That'd be great. That's facebook.com/mindthemoment. And feel free to submit more than one. We know that spot could change day to day to day, depending on where you are. But if you'd prefer, you can also send those pics to us directly at askmtm@harvardpilgrim.org. And if you're doing that, also let us know how you're doing, what's new in your world. If you have any questions for our experts, we will pass those questions along, get them answered. You can also always leave a voicemail at my desk number, which is 617-509-7047. And as I said, we will be back with you every Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find the links to these sessions and other resources at our main site at harvardpilgrim.org/mindfulness. And you can rewatch this session, older sessions, and introductory sessions, which feature my colleague Tara Healy on our YouTube page. So that is that. So I also just want to end by saying that we're a little late here in recognizing Father's Day. So just one last quick quote from the American inventor Charles Kettering. He said, "Every father should remember that one day his son will follow his example, not his advice." So for all the parents, children, and everyone in between who's been watching today, Rebecca, thank you for giving us an example to follow as we continue with the rest of our day and try to pass along a mindful example to all of those around us. And I'm wondering if you'd leave us with one resource that you think that people might find especially useful as they continue to grow their practice day and every day.
One of my favorite books, John Wellwood, Journey of the Heart. So Journey of the Heart, the subtitle is The Path of Conscious Love. Again, the author is John Wellwood, Wellwood. Journey of the Heart, John Wellwood.
Oh, thank you for that. And also thank you for everyone in the chat box who wished me congratulations. That's very sweet.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We will see you soon. Have a momentous day.